guys, it's Izzy and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am going to be answering my most asked question ever, which is what happened to you, or any sort of variation of that. This is always the first question I get asked by anybody I meet, and I really wanted to just share it with you guys. I've been thinking about... If you're thinking this video sounds familiar, you probably actually found my channel through this video, because I have done it once before. However, it was quite short and not too detailed. It left people asking a lot of questions, so I kind of wanted to clear them all up by giving a really detailed version. So prepare for this video to be long, get yourself a drink and a snack, and just like sit down, have a chill whilst I chat. Okay, so this happened almost 10 years ago now. It's actually 10 years in September, so let me know what you think I should do as like a 10-year celebration. Yeah, I was thinking to go out for like a meal or something, but hopefully the restaurants will be back open by then, but we'll have to see. So this all happened on September the 15th in 2010 when I was just 7 years old. I went to school one morning and I felt perfectly fine. Like, I didn't complain about anything at all, nothing to complain about, because I felt fine. So I went to school and it was in my first lesson of the day, which was maths, and I started to feel a bit unwell, but it was just kind of like cold-like symptoms, I think, so it didn't seem like I was gonna die. I remember when I was sat in this lesson, one of my friends was sat on a different table because we like, had to, it's like a seating plan, and she kept coming over to me and like checking that I was okay, because she could tell that I like looked really ill and like felt really ill. So she kept coming over and the teachers were like, oh, like, look, you're fine, like, because everyone just thought, oh, she's a kid, she's been traumatic, she wants to go home. Which, to be fair, I kind of even thought that. I mean, nobody ever thought it would be as serious as it turned out to be. So eventually the teachers and the school rang my mum and she came and picked me up and we went home. I live really close to my primary school, so just managed to get home really quickly. And yeah, I spent the whole rest of the afternoon just kind of lying on the sofa watching like daytime kids TV. I was drinking water, I think, but I don't think I was eating, which I think is what really alarmed my parents, because kids eat, and when I wasn't eating and didn't have an appetite, I think my parents were like, something's wrong here. So they started to pay more attention to my symptoms, to my illness, what it was, try and work out, look, has she just got a really bad bug, or is there something more underlying? I think I was sort of becoming more groggy. I was kind of in and out of sleep and just very under the weather. So my parents ran me a bath. I had a bath and I kind of got ready for bed. I think this was still relatively early because I wanted to go to bed early because I didn't feel well, and you know, I thought, oh, good night's sleep, I'll be fine. So I'm having a bath and I think my parents were helping me and they noticed a bruise. Now, if you know what I'm about to say, you know. So my bruise was actually on my wrist, and they were like, Izzy, what have you done? Have you got a bruise on your wrist? Like, when have you done this? Because it wasn't there earlier, you've been at home all day, like, how have you done this? And I was just like, I don't know. But I was so like, oh, leave me alone, that I was just like, yeah, whatever. And my parents started to think, this is a bit weird, like, why has she got this? So I went to bed, and I think the bit where I started to realise the severity of it was my parents didn't want my brothers to come and say goodnight to me. They wanted to keep them as far away from me as possible, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm ill. So yeah, as I kind of had gone to bed, I then started becoming really nauseous. I started vomiting and I had like diarrhea and stuff, which is really gross, but I became really, really ill and was deteriorating pretty quickly. I think I was sort of like in and out of like, not consciousness, but I wasn't there. I was kind of all over the place, feeling really, really unwell. And I remember my parents saying, right, we're ringing an ambulance. And I was like, yo, what's wrong with me? Because the symptoms were nothing too different to like a sickness bug or a cold. Now, I don't know how the medical system works wherever you are, but in the UK, when you ring an ambulance, normally a paramedic comes in a car first, just to assess the situation. It's quicker, it's easier, and it's more cost effective, because if you don't then need an ambulance, they don't have to send the massive ambulance out. So the paramedic came first and treated me. He came to see me and realised straight away that it was meningitis, that I had contracted meningitis at the age of 7, and it wasn't looking good. I was basically dying. So this is where my memory becomes awful, which is why I've, before this video, prepped my parents to be like, yo, give me a list of everything that happened, because after this I started to really come in and out of consciousness, and then yeah, you'll find out in a minute. So I got an injection in my bum. It was like a massive dose of what's like the word, basically like a massive dose of almost like a vaccination against meningitis straight away. Now I do want to point out at this point, the meningitis vaccine for the meningitis that I got, which was meningococcal septicemia, that's what it turned into, doesn't actually, or didn't actually exist at this point. My parents are fully for vaccinations, I'm fully for vaccinations, it didn't exist. So don't come for me, it didn't exist. After me and my family have done a lot of work to get it, so the kids get it in the UK as part of their childhood vaccinations. They now do, but you couldn't at the time. I just want to put that out there because on the last one so many people hated my parents and I was like, it didn't exist. So I then got rushed in the ambulance to my local hospital. My local hospital isn't like a massive trauma centre, it's just like, you know, your average hospital. I was there in their A&E department for probably quite a few hours. I think it was around 8 o'clock when I got rushed into hospital, and I was there till almost at midnight, I think. So I was lay on a bed with thousands and thousands of, well, it felt like thousands and thousands, it was probably about 10 doctors and nurses working on me, trying to stabilise me, because at this point I'd been given an injection to try and battle the meningitis, but my body was starting to shut down. So I really needed the help of support, of machines and anybody that I literally could get to try and keep me alive. So this is where my memory goes blank, because I actually got put in an induced coma. The best way to stabilise someone is actually to put them in a coma, because it means they aren't awake, so their body can focus more on trying to live. I don't know if that makes any sense, I'm sorry, I'm not a doctor, but yeah, so I got put in a coma, and this actually meant that the doctors could transfer me to QMC, which is Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham, and this is a very big trauma centre. So I got taken there in an ambulance middle of the night. So I went in the ambulance by myself, and my parents actually followed in a car. My mum would come to my local A&E with me, but my dad had stayed home with my brothers, so they kind of both joined back up together, got a little bag full of stuff and headed over to QMC, not realising that they'd end up staying there for ages. In the ambulance on the way, my heart actually stopped, so it's kind of dead for a minute, but yeah, my heart actually stopped during the transfer, and then I was brought in to QMC ready for my treatment. On arrival to QMC, I went straight to PICU, which is the Paediatric Intensive Care Unit. This is the highest intensity of unit you can get in a hospital. So I was ill. I then stayed in my coma, I think it was for about a week and a half, on this intensive care unit, where they tried to stabilise me and kind of bring loads of my organs back to life, because I'd actually had complete organ failure. My heart stopped, my kidneys were packing up, I can't think of another organ, but I had lots of organ failure. Whilst I was in the coma, I was on full life support, and they were basically trying to stop the meningitis from spreading around my body, stop my body from attacking itself, because meningococcal septicemia kind of turns into sepsis, so your body kind of attacks yourself. And basically, the best explanation, also a really gross one, is that the blood basically leaks out of your veins, so all of my ends of my arms and my legs, which I now have amputated, basically died because there wasn't enough blood flowing to it, because the doctors tried to concentrate it all to my torso, which has all my organs in, because they wanted to make sure that all my heart and everything had the blood, whereas the ends of my arms wasn't as necessary. So I was on this ward for about 2 weeks, and after, I think I moved to the kidney ward, where I stayed in a private room. This was basically because my legs were disgusting. They were trying to stabilise my organs and my kidneys, and what people think that when I went into hospital, in fact I even thought this, that they amputated my arms and legs as soon as possible, but actually they were planning to wait 6 weeks, because they want to make sure that they only have to do the amputation once, and they're amputating, so they're chopping off the dead skin and keeping all of the fresh new, well, it's not really new, but the fresh skin. but they actually had to do my operation earlier. Yeah, so they had to do my operation earlier than the 6-week mark that they were going to do, because I kept getting lots of infections. I don't think they were actually on like the dead skin, but I think it was more just like bladder infections and stuff like that. But because my temperature was all over the place due to these infections, they had to amputate earlier just to make sure that it had nothing to do with the dead bits of limb attached to me. If I got an infection in them, it could damage my bone or anything in my residual limb, which they really didn't want to do, as they wanted to make sure that I had as much limbs left as possible. So on the 16th of October, I didn't know this, my mum told me this the other day, this was when I had my operation to make me a quadruple amputee. As my limbs had died, there was no point keeping them on my body. It was just a case of infection, so the doctors did the only choice they had, which was to amputate them, as they were just dead bits of limb attached to me, which could have actually killed me if a big infection had spread through them. So they had to amputate parts of my arms and my legs. I was in the operating theatre for around 6 hours, which was probably the scariest 6 hours of my parents' entire lives, not knowing what was happening. It's not the safest operation, I'm presuming, and it was going for a while. If I came out of the operating theatre and could breathe for myself, they wanted to put me on high dependency unit, and if I couldn't breathe for myself and still needed all of my tubes and stuff, then they were going to put me on PICU. Now luckily for me, I came out of the theatre and could breathe, so I got put on high dependency, where I recovered from my operation for a while. Now I want to stress, the entire time I was in hospital, even to my release, I was still really ill. And yeah, even when I got home, I was still really ill, so I spent my time on high dependency trying to recuperate as much as possible, getting over the fact that I just lost my limbs. My meds were all over the place. I did not have enough painkillers at all the night after my operation. I was in absolute agony. It hurts when you can't have enough morphine. Yeah, I think I needed a lot of a stronger dose of morphine, so luckily when my dose got sorted out in the end, because the doctors have to prescribe it, so once the doctors had prescribed me the right level of morphine, I think I was okay. But you'd be surprised at how much it hurts when you've had your arm amputated and then you start to feel it. It hurts. So after being on high dependency and recuperating a little bit, I was moved back to the kidney ward, but this time I shared the ward with other people rather than having a private room, which I guess just shows how much I'd already recovered at this point. So from then on, I actually had to have dialysis. I think it was about twice a week due to my kidney failure. When your kidneys like pack up and like give up, it takes them a while to come back to a working function. So dialysis helped for a while, just whilst they were getting back to normal, which they eventually did, thankfully. So yeah, I had to have my dialysis. Absolutely hated dialysis. As a 7-year-old, having dialysis is the most boring thing ever. If you don't know the process you have to go through, basically you have the needles in you and you kind of just have to lie there still for hours and hours and hours. And as a child, lying in a bed was bad enough, but having to lie still in a bed was horrendous. I would also have to have multiple operations a week. This was because my bandages on my arms and my legs were too painful for them to just change on the ward, and I'm assuming it was probably like dangerous too, infection wise, so they had to take me into theatre under general anaesthetic so that they could change my bandages for my arms and my legs. I think one of my legs was an open wound left with like a vacuum pump thing on it. But the others that had been skin grafted or whatever were bandaged up, so I had to have that operation. I have a reaction when I have general anaesthetic. It makes me so nauseous, so to have that multiple times a week, it wasn't great. Honestly, me and anaesthetic, I've been through a lot and I hate it to this day. You'd think the amount of times I've had it, I've got over it. No, still makes me feel sick. So when I was on this ward, my friends and my family could come and visit me, just to really make sure that I had a bit of normality. So loads of my friends came in, basically all of my family members came in, because a lot of people hadn't actually come in until after my operation, because it was pretty grim having my arms and legs there. Even though they were bandaged, I was just so ill that they didn't really want other people coming in, so only immediate family really came in at that point. But after my operation, a lot more people could come in and visit me, so it was really nice. I have some pictures which I might go through with you one day when my best friend came in. And yeah, stuff like that. So that was really, really sweet, and I guess it showed me that I was getting better, the fact that I could have people come in and see me. And yeah, my bed was surrounded by cards, which was amazing. I used to have these protein drinks, which they put through a tube down my nose. I had to have a feeding tube in because I wasn't getting the nutrients in. Basically, if you have a phobia of sick, don't listen for a minute. But basically, I could not keep any food down. Everything I ate, I would throw up, be it medication, food, literally anything. They put me on Lucozade drinks for the glucose that you actually have in a Lucozade drink that was like prescribed by the doctors. So I had Lucozade drinks and I had these protein drinks put down my feeding tube, just to kind of build me up as much as possible, because I see the pictures now. I was so flipping skinny and like unwell skinny because I just hadn't eaten or had any nutrients for so long with being in the coma and everything, that when I came out it was just like, oh my god, she's flipping tiny. So they then moved me to a children's ward, which was just like a general thing. There were some children on there that stayed there all the time, and then there were some kids that actually just came in for a day case, which was probably the most frustrating thing for me to have to watch ever. I was trapped there for 9 weeks. These kids got to come in and go out the same day. So my treatment continued, and I kept having things like blood transfusions. I had so many blood transfusions. Honestly, it sounds disgusting, but a blood transfusion, it just made me feel like 5 times better, 10 times better in like 2 minutes. It was great. I think I had a blood transfusion the day actually before I got released. So finally, after 9 weeks in hospital, I got released home, and I just want to say at this point I was still so ill. So when I returned home, I was so skinny because I was still really, really poorly. The rest of my recovery really was just kind of recuperation, so I could do it from home without the medical treatment of the doctors. So I forgot to mention in the video, sorry about the sun, but I actually ended up back in A&E maybe like a week after I came out of hospital, maybe not even that, because basically all of the medication that I'd been on, like the morphine and stuff, had actually caused me to have like really severe constipation. It sounds disgusting. So I went to A&E and got prescribed some like drinks that softened everything up. So yeah, I had to actually go back to A&E after a while. No, it's gross, but I just thought I'd let you know. I had doctors come to visit me at my house, or probably nurses actually, to come and change my dressings and sort all of them out on my legs and all over my scars, because I've been left with scars all over my body from where the blood leaked, like out of my veins and stuff. So I have scars flipping everywhere. But I'm totally fine with it at this point in my life. I don't care. I also had quite a few appointments to see the kidney people. I saw the kidney specialist for quite a while just to make sure that my kidney function did go back up to normal after all the trauma had been over, which it actually has, which is great. I also saw the plastics people, because scars and stuff all go under the plastics people, so I had to go see them specialists for quite a while. So I had steroid injections in quite a few of my scars just to kind of lower them and make them as pain-free as possible. I had the option whether I wanted loads of my scars I have like on my hips and stuff cleaned up and smallened, but I just didn't. I was over it at this point. When I was about 12 or 13, I actually got discharged from all of my specialists and just put on open appointments, so I can go and see any of the doctors when if I want an appointment I can, but I don't have to, do you know what I mean? So I started the process of getting prosthetic limbs. I have loads of videos on my channel about prosthetic limbs, but as soon as my arms were recovered enough, they tried me with prosthetic arms, which I now despise. I also started wearing prosthetic legs, which got me back to basically normal, which was absolutely fab. I'm really happy about them, and still to this day so glad that the amputations in my leg were suitable for prosthetic limbs, because I think it's just made my life 5,000 times better and easier. I then had to have a shoulder operation quite a few years ago because the meningitis had actually affected all my growth plates during when I was ill and in hospital, so that's another fun story. Meningitis did leave me with that as a little lasting effect, which was really great, so thanks for that. But yeah, if you want to know the details of that, again, I have a video on that, rather than just making this one even longer. I wanted to end this video on saying that do not pity me in any way from watching this. I am living such a happy and healthy life, and yeah, it was a bad thing that happened to me. I'm not going to deny that. However, I I'm so grateful for the life that I have got and that I'm living now. That it's not really a negative anymore, it's just a challenge that I had to overcome at quite a young age. I'm living happily on my prosthetic limbs now and just really making the most out of every moment. So if you want to watch more of my life, then make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel here. You have so many videos about different things I can do, different things I'm interested in, and anything like that, which really will just give you more of an insight into what I've done with my life since I almost died. Anyway guys, I think that might be the end of this very long video explaining what happened when I was 7. My 7-year-old me was a very strong little girl who managed to overcome death. So woo, go for that. Anyway, if you did enjoy listening to my story, then make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!